just to start, you were with us last year as well for another event, and you told us a very interesting thing that everybody was saying, lots of people were saying, that coronavirus put us all together in the same boat. But we are not in the same boat, we are in the same storm. Do you think we are still in a storm, or where do you see we are now?
Absolutely. We are still very much in a storm. And Bettina, for those who didn't hear the comments we made previously, just think about it for a second. Some of us have had the luxury of working from home. That's a different boat from the essential employees, the healthcare workers, and the first responders that must put their health and the risk their family's health just to go to work. So many of us have no work to go back to, and here in America, there are people who don't believe that we are in a storm. So no, we're not in the same boat, Bettina. We are in the same storm, and the storm is still actively attacking us right now.
Chris, hearing you say this, there's something I would like to ask you about leadership, right? Because over the last year and a half, during the pandemic, every single company, and we in XP, we're also part of that, had to rethink their every single strategy, think how to act fast, but also think about how to deal with their employees in a very different way, right? Be more empathic. So I'd like to ask you about leadership. What do you see the role of a leader in this new and changing world that we're coming out of after COVID?
Right now, it's going to be very, very interesting. Let's say this. You can learn a lot about a man or a woman when they are up against the wall, in a corner, and having to fight for their lives. You can learn a lot about a man or a woman in that situation. You can also learn a lot about companies and institutions and how they treat their people in these challenging times. Okay? Let me say this. Again, I don't know the numbers in Brazil, but if it's anything like it is here in America, all of this love, admiration, and respect that we all say that we have for the healthcare workers, the first responders, and essential employees, well, you know what? At some point soon, Bettina, it's going to be contract time. And all that love, respect, and admiration is going to have to get reflected at the bargaining table with these essential employees, healthcare workers, and first responders. The challenge is going to be the states and the governments don't have the tax revenue that they previously had. Companies don't have the revenue that they used to have. It's going to be very interesting to see how we reflect what we say is important. It's going to be very interesting to see that reflected in how we deal with these employees.
I get your point. Maybe putting in other words, it's during these challenging times that you see who actually walks the talk, right? Because it's easy to put it in an outdoor. It's very hard to implement on the day-to-day. So I get your point, and I think it's the times like this that prove who you are and who your company is and who you are as a leader. Are you hearing me well?
Yes.
Great. Bettina, do you want to take the next one?
Well, Chris, in this challenging scenario, what do you think is the most important ability for an entrepreneur? Has your view changed in any way during the COVID?
I think the most important thing for an entrepreneur right now is you still have got to see that vision that no one else can see but you. The role of an entrepreneur is to turn visions into realities. And you've got to be able to do that, Bettina, in a storm. This is the time for entrepreneurs, small business people, and all business people to be doing our best work. And sometimes you've got to do your best work in the rain. And that rain, whatever it is, external factors, coronavirus, or a recession, or the global financial crises, you have still got to perform at your highest possible level and always be mindful of what can I control? I can't control these external factors, but this right here and this right here, this is what I can control and stay focused on, that vision. That, Bettina, I think is the most important thing that any entrepreneur or small business person can be doing right now, is stay focused on the vision that you see for yourself and the vision that you want to create for your business, but most importantly, the future you want to create for your family.
Hearing
Great.
you say that, I would like to ask you a question, Chris, about opportunities and, let's say, moves. So along your journey, I think one of your, well, you have a lot of abilities, but one of your abilities has been able to look at these moves and opportunities and translate them into business, right? And this last year and a half, and in a very rapidly changing world, we've seen a very different environment and maybe structural changes. So on your personal entrepreneur view, what do you think are potential opportunities that arise from this very challenging environment that we're living today? Thinking as a businessman, what do you think changes with this?
Again, I said earlier, and I think it's worth repeating, this is the time to be doing your best work. This space that we're in right now, we're going to be in this space, I don't know how long. My gut is telling me we're going to be in this space at least another year. So this pitch, this field, this arena, this court, this is where we're all going to be playing for some time. And this, sir, I will submit to you, is the time to be doing your best work. And when I say your best work, I'm not just talking about your job. Doing your best work could mean being the best husband, being the best father, being the best son. And I made that comment gender specific for a reason. Man, all the women that I know all around the world are pretty much maxed out. This is a point where men have got to do their best work. And I believe that.
And this is really aligned with another panel that we had earlier today with Scott Galloway. And he said that the profound opportunity is to repair and cement relationships, the relationships with our family, with our friends, with our parents. So I guess you think the same.
Very much, Bettina. I believe that. And you know what? At some point, we need to talk a little bit more about relationships and how important they are.
And especially at work, right?
Especially at work. And in this environment right now, keep in mind, none of us chose this. Bettina, this is where we all had to make, the whole world had to make a hard pivot at the same time. And a hard pivot being defined as something that you would have never chosen, but you still got to make it work. I would submit to you, Bettina or Carl, that if you had gone into senior management at XP January 2nd of 2020 and said, I got this great idea, we're going to do everything remotely starting tomorrow.
They would say we were crazy.
I can answer that question, Chris. I can answer that question. You have no. We had one of the second COVID crisis in Brazil was in our company. Thank God everything was fine, but it obliged us to jump into a COVID scenario. You know, work at home, redo all our systems in 2 weeks, while Brazil was a month away from starting to see COVID cases rising. So it was chaos. I mean, chaos. I was at home on the first, let's say, wave of employees that had to go home. And I remember doing this war room with all our senior management. We were doing like, how are we going to do this, right? In 2 weeks, we ordered laptops for everyone. We did all our systems. We're just, this is crazy. So I can answer that question. They would have left and probably kicked us out.
Oh, you would be driving Uber right now, someplace in Brazil, right?
Exactly.
But think about this just for a second. Imagine what we could do if we wanted to. We did 2020 because we had to. And there's a difference. 2020 showed us what could be. 2021 is where we can show what can be. And you know what the difference is, Carl? Could suggests the possibility of, can is a statement of fact. So now that we know what we are capable of, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what we do going forward, starting right now.
Look, hearing what you said right now, and getting some points of your earlier point, I think it's not only at work, but also as people. Work, what can we do? Like, relationships completely changed over the last year and a half. You spent maybe months away from your loved ones without being able to connect with them. I think it enabled us to rethink everything in our lives. So I get your point.
What really matters, right?
Exactly.
What
Everything
really
was put
matters.
into perspective.
Yeah, and Chris, some of the lessons we learned from you were to be passionate about what we do, to believe in ourselves, and to use our time wisely. Do you still believe in this?
Absolutely. But Tina, you know what? I am one of those people, and one of the things I do, Bettina, you know, I wear 2 watches, okay? And I have for 35 years, but now I have to tell you, it's more important now than ever before because of all the things that 2020 taught all of us. The one thing that is undeniable is the fact that none of us knows how much time we've got left on the clock. Everything, Bettina, has become so much more important right now. Everything that we do with our time has become more important right now than ever before. Because again, none of us knows how much time we got left on the clock. That's a fact, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
we can't look at actuarial studies or statistics from accountants and just say, oh, I project I'm going to live X numbers of years. None of us knows. We are living right now in what I call atomic time. And everything has got to be more important than ever before.
There's a recent interview at David Letterman with President Obama that they were talking about, the lucky factor, and they converged to a point that basically maybe the most important thing that drives success on someone's life is the lucky factor. Getting what you said right now, how do you see that? I mean, how do you see the lucky factor, I mean, luck impacting your life and your success versus
If
effort?
you believe me,
Sorry.
first of all, be very careful listening to what any politicians say. Okay, really? Come on, man. Let me tell you what Quincy Jones once told me about luck. Quincy Jones once said that luck is the dust created when opportunity and preparation collide.
I like that.
That's what luck is, okay? I will say this, Carl, the best luck I ever had, I made. The worst luck I ever had, I made. I had something to do with it. So, if you feel lucky, man, we got a place called Las Vegas. Go to Vegas.
I couldn't agree
Luck
more.
is not going to help any of us right now, Carl.
I couldn't
We have to
agree
be
more.
prepared, we have to be focused, we have to be committed, and we also have to help other people. Luck has got nothing to do with it.
I like the answer. About a month ago, we were having a lecture with our CEO, and he was talking about luck along your career. And the way he put it, it wasn't as emphatic as you did, but I would repeat it here. He said, look, you have to work to be prepared. Maybe you will have a luck factor bringing an opportunity to your door, but it probably will present to a lot of people. The difference is how much you work to be prepared for the moment that luck or that opportunity arises to be able to step up. So I liked your answer, and I agree with you a lot with that.
And again, be careful listening to these American politicians.
Brazilians as well, don't worry. It's not only in America, don't worry about it.
Whoa, hey,
Chris, moving to the ESG agenda, which is a very important topic, and it's gaining traction, especially in the last years, because of COVID. Do you think that the newest generations are more engaged to the ESG topic? And why is this so important for the future?
Let me say this. Again, I do not know what is happening in Brazil with ESG, but let me say this here in America. I am concerned. I ask all of these people, the ESG people, the DEI people, and the CEOs, why do you care now? All this compassion and concern that you're expressing and showing now, why now? Where was all this concern and compassion in 2019, 18, 17, 16, 15, as far back as you want to go? To all of those ESG people, my question is, why do you care now? And until you can answer that question, maybe you should not say anything.
Can
Right?
I ask you a question on that end, Chris? I'm sorry if I interrupted you, but don't you think that maybe the last year and a half has put people in touch with different sides of the world? I mean, you mentioned a bit of like, you never know where life's going to end, right? And maybe the value of things changed a bit due to the perspective, right? Suddenly we're all put, to our knees, sent home, locked in. No matter, how much money do you have or where do you live, you're still going through the same challenges, and maybe you believe that suddenly you're just one more, human being in the world. Don't you think that
being more empathic with everybody and worrying more about the world?
do you think that kind of arises this, when we say ESG, maybe we can translate it into, caring more on a different, on different angles, and I acknowledge your provocation, right? Like, why now? But just to get your thoughts on that, hasn't maybe the world been touched in a way that no one else had before?
We're going to find out very, very soon if this time, this space that we're in right now, is this going to be truly transformational, or is it simply going to be transactional? Okay? Transactional means, okay, well, we make a check or we make a contribution. That's transactional. Transformative can't start until we all can answer that very, very difficult question. Why do you care now? That's a question, Bettina, that makes a lot of people, especially people in business, very, very uncomfortable. I would challenge the CEOs of any major corporation in the United States or in Brazil or any place on the planet. If we want to talk about transformation, let's walk through the C-suite at your office. And I want you to show me how many people out here that don't look like you but could do your job. Why aren't there any people out here that don't look like you that could do your job? And whose job was that? Until you can answer those questions, guys, we're talking about doing transactions, not making transformation.
Fair enough, Chris, fair enough. I think, maybe we're going to find out over the next couple of years if this is it's a hot topic, and it's fun to talk about it now, and fun, not necessarily the best word, but
if it's a short term or a long term,
or if this has really
initiative.
impacted.
Absolutely. And it's all going to show, Bettina, okay? It's all going to show. And I have to tell you, one day soon, very, very soon, we're all going to have to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, well, what did I do? What did I do that was transformative? What did I do, honestly, also, to try and help someone that I didn't have to? I have to tell you, one of the most important things that I'm doing in my life right now is spending as much time as I can with high school students and junior high school students all around the world. And as a matter of fact, I've even spoken at a school right there in Brazil. And I'm looking forward to coming back sometimes very, very soon and encouraging young people and giving them permission to dream. Quattro barras, and the school teacher, my favorite school teacher in all of South America, Marcia Lucas. So that's what I'm doing to help make transformation. I'm investing in young people right now who are soon going to be running the world.
Amazing. And how do you think that these newest generations think about everything we are living and all these challenges?
Bettina, let's do this. Let's just go back 20 years, okay? Let's talk about the children who were born in the year 2000. Bettina, those children were conceived in a storm, meaning in 1999, we were all freaked out about something called Y2K. Remember that? Right. The banks were going to fail, the utilities were going to collapse, all government documents and records were going to be lost forever. It turned out to be a non-event. But the point is, the children born in the year 2000 were conceived in that storm of 1999. When you fast forward, Carl, on that timeline 1 year, just as many of those babies were learning how to walk, what happens? 9/11. Fast forward 7 years, what happens? Global financial crises. Fast forward 12 years, what happens? Politics, polarization, and a pandemic. What's the one constant in that timeline? Bettina, the one constant in that timeline is change. Big, dramatic, frightening change. My point is, there's never been another generation of young people globally better prepared to embrace, create, or demand change than this generation coming up right now. And that's what gives me hope for the future, Bettina.
And this is
I've
so
seen
good
the
to
faces
hear.
of the future all over the world. And when I see and spend time with young people all over the world, that gives me tremendous hope for the future.
That's great, Chris. And maybe that's how we're going to actually make those changes become structural. Because the new generations, they do care. And I do believe this. We see this in every single aspect when we go to younger clients within our place, for example. They care. And when your clients care, people and companies have to start to shift. So maybe that's another angle that we're actually going to be able to go through this transformation. Going back to that question, on ESG and impact and what is your role, we see that on the talks that we have with a lot of young people. We encourage a lot of that within our company. And they see the world differently. They ask you, okay, but what does this product that you sell, what does it make? What's the impact? Why are you doing this? What are you changing? We didn't hear that 10 years ago, right? Definitely not 30, 40, 50 years ago. So maybe that's a way that we can drive change. Maybe that's a way. It gives us hope as well to hear you say that.
We've all got to be able to answer that question. It's a big, painful, hard question. Why do you care now?
Yeah.
I asked that question of a CEO of a major corporation here in the United States last year on a Zoom call. And Bettina, you know what he said to me?
What?
With tears in his eyes, he said to me, I care now because I'm being challenged by my children. My children have said to me, when I was a little boy, when I was a little girl, when you saw African Americans on television, you said this. Mom said that. I couldn't say anything because I was just a kid. But now I'm here to tell you that you've been part of the problem all along. So that was his response. Why do you care now? I'm being challenged by my children, those children that we just talked about a moment ago that are driving this change. They're challenging their parents. And, Carl, just as importantly, They're challenging institutions and businesses.
Perfect. Yeah.
And these young people, they will vote with their feet. They will vote with their wallets. Very quickly, they will walk away from you.
Yeah, and at the same time, we see some positive initiatives that are also negative things happening, such as regarding racism and discrimination against minorities is still, right? So what do you think about this particularly? Are we evolving or regressing in this issue?
Let me tell you what's getting ready to happen here in America. And Bettina, you're a young woman. Remember we had this conversation. In 20 years, America is going to become a majority minority country for the first time in its history. Bettina, I just want to live another 20 years so I can see it. I got to live another 20 years, Bettina. I got to be 87 years old just so I can say, yeah.
So I take your answer is that we are evolving.
Yeah, yeah, we are evolving.
We are evolving. Yes, sir. We are evolving.
And how we keep evolving? How do we continue with the positive initiatives as leaders, as people, as I don't know, institutions? How can we continue this agenda, the positive agenda?
We got to keep struggling with that one question, Bettina. Why do we care now? We could continue and do business as we, and some of us are going to, Bettina. Many of us are going to just say, okay, well, that's over. We wrote a check. We held hands. We sang We Are the World, and it's over. But no, I'm telling you, it's not. The people and the businesses, especially that are going to grow and be sustainable going forward, are going to be able to answer that question for themselves, internally, and to their customers. This is why we care now. Mm-hmm. We are XP, and this is why we care now. And in the case of XP, we could say we always did care. The rest of the world is just now embracing our perspective.
I agree with you, and I'm not talking about XP, but I'm talking in general. We need to be able to put that into the agenda of all the large institutions, corporations, and us as individuals in a sustainable way. We need to find a way to make everyone understand why they should care, even if they didn't care 10 years ago, and provoke that. If we're able to put that, we're going to your direction. Yeah. We're going to your direction, not only having the minorities become a majority, but also diminishing the struggle and the tension between all of that environment, which is a very, very real issue we have today everywhere in the world, not only in the US. We see this here, we see this in the Middle East, we see this everywhere. I want to change a bit of subject. We have about 10 minutes. I want to ask you about your book. So in your book, you talk about how to put dreams into actions. And you mentioned that you're always, this is what you teach, right? I don't know if teach is the word, but this is what you provoke young people when you know them. So can you talk about how you see putting dreams into actions a bit to us?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of the question.
If you can talk to us about, in your book you talk about putting dreams into action, right? And I remember you mentioning the 3 R's and how you tell
I
young
love
people.
the 3 R's.
Exactly. So can you share a bit of that with us?
Man.
How would you put dreams into action?
You guys are too young. You don't remember the song about the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. That song, Bettina, was written in 1795. But there's a new 3 R's.
You were young as well. Don't say that. Even you were young at that 1795.
No, but you know what? I remember singing it as a little boy. Reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? But there's a new 3 R's. The rep, the rap, and the Rolodex. Right now, today in business, now more than ever before, You must maintain a reputation that is impeccable. The reputation will open doors or keep doors shut. The rap, you've got to be able to communicate. You can have the best goods, services, or products in the world, but if you cannot communicate, if you cannot rap, you will never sell it. And the Rolodex, what we're talking about there, Carl, there used to be this big paper thing that sat on your desk. It had all your contacts on it. Before we had a smartphone, we had a Rolodex. And what we're talking about there are relationships. Relationships are everything. Relationships can do things that money cannot. Relationships can be more important than money. And you got to include in that the relationships between employers and employees and relationships between customers and businesses. Again, that relationship. We're in a business, Carl, where everybody is good. There might be this much difference separating you from your biggest competitor. I will submit to you, the business that's going to get all of those opportunities is the one that's invested the most in the relationships. So relationships are everything.
Perfect. And Chris, I've seen some people struggling with relationships during this digital moment. So how can we change this? How can we improve the relationships in this digital environment?
Well, the first thing we've got to do, honestly, in this digital environment, man, one of the things we've all had to do, and I think we all long for, Bettina, is more and more human contact. I cannot tell you, man, I would love to be right there with you in Brazil right now.
Me
I
too.
would love to, Bettina. But until I can, we've got to engage this way. Okay, we've got to use this new technology.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact, nothing will ever replace, Bettina, being able to sit across the table from you or Carl and look you in the eye and shake your hand and say, I'm glad to see you. But until then, we've got to use these new tools, and we also have to learn how we can use these new tools to help other people.
Yeah. And this is very important for leaders and the employees of a company because it's really challenging to be digital, and we need to also adapt every time, right? So I think this is a very important ability as a leader to adapt and to teach everyone in the company how to improve in this different scenario, right?
Definitely. Chris.
Absolutely.
I know, we had to totally and utterly reinvent the way that we connect with each other. I mean, with our employees, with our teams, with our senior management, rethink everything, and it's still a major challenge. We have a lot of internal surveys, right, to understand, how people are feeling, and we've seen, massive ups and downs. And there's times that, we felt really desperate is not the word, but really like without power, because we were trying to reinvent things and digital events, and you saw that people were suffering. But at the end of the day, to your point, when we were open about it, we called everyone to like this big town hall, digital town hall, and said, guys, let's talk about this. Let's talk about how you're feeling. Let's talk about how you connect. Let's talk about how we can help you. And we tried to be honest about it and hear ways that we could do it. We've been able gradually to connect differently, and definitely with COVID a bit less intense, we've been able to do a more phygital world. But I agree with you, nothing can substitute the human interaction. And I want to extend the invitation. We're going to have you in person as soon as we can in a huge event with over 50,000 Brazilians with us.
Yeah.
You will love it. We will love it.
Yes, yes. Well, let's do that. Let's do that, and until we can do that, Bettina and Carl, let's just stay in touch. We've got to continue these conversations and continue to push and pull each other and be able to answer that big, big question of why do you care now, and what are we going to do different going forward, and how can we help somebody else?
Perfect.
Let me say this. I will never forget my last conversation with my dear friend, Dr. Maya Angelou. We were talking about struggle, and I will never forget her saying to me, "We have the people for this mountain. We must all be mindful that there were people who came before us, who came up a steeper side of this mountain, carrying a bigger and heavier load with little to no opportunity, but they kept going forward, onward, and upward. And still I rise. This has been done before, but now it's our turn.
Yeah.
We can do this."
Chris, it's amazing to talk to you. You know, I love to talk to you, but unfortunately, we are at the end of our conversation. So I just
Why?
want to say thank you.
Why? Why? Where are you going?
Chris, let me say
Bettina,
this.
I can't leave the house. I'm not going
Yeah,
anywhere.
I could stay here.
We could spend, the whole night here in Brazil talking with you. And I'd repeat what we said at the beginning. We met you the first time. You didn't know we were there, but we were there, front row, actually almost crying, maybe cried a couple of times,
Yeah.
maybe cried. I'm going to admit that. We might have cried a couple of times, and it's still, amazing to be here with you.
Yeah,
I would
it's
love,
always amazing.
It's always amazing. And you've been a great
Amen.
partner with us. So, we really want to thank you for being here, for transmitting this message, this impact, and this provocation
And for being
to
so
everyone.
inspiring for everyone. You were awesome.
Oh, Bettina, Carl, obrigado, Brazil. Obrigado.
That was
Obrigada,
amazing.
Chris.
See you again soon.
See you soon.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Chris.
you.
See you in
Bye-bye.
person
Thank
soon.
you. Obrigado, Brazil.
Obrigada.
Peace,
Power and prayers.
Amazing,
See
Chris.
you.
See you.